Welcome to Powerful Women Rising, the podcast for female entrepreneurs playing by their own rules and growing their businesses their way. Join business relationship strategist and your host, Melissa Snow, as she brings you practical perspectives and candid conversations. Each episode guides you to make smarter decisions and take bold action as you build a business that's both profitable and aligned. Because the world is a better place when powerful women rise together.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. I'm your host, business relationship strategist, and founder of Powerful Women Rising, Melissa Snow. I am so excited to be here with you today to talk about speaking as a strategy for growing your business. I think that visibility strategies is something that we hear a lot about, but we may not necessarily know what that means, and I don't know if many of us think on a regular basis about what visibility strategies we're using, or if we're just kind of like showing up in all of the places whenever we feel like showing up there, or whenever we have time to show up there, and like hoping we're visible to somebody. It's interesting because at the last Powerful Women Rising Connection Network virtual speed networking event, one of the breakout rooms, I gave them the topic of what is your number one visibility strategy for second quarter? And so many people afterwards said, I'm so glad you asked that question because I hadn't really thought about it. And it's such an important question because people can't buy from you if they don't know that you exist. And they need to know that you exist more than once, right? We usually don't go to the store and buy the thing the first time that we saw it. Okay, well, if you're me and you're very impulsive, maybe you do. But a lot of times we see something, we think about buying it, maybe we look for it in other places, we look to see if other people have it, we ask them about their experiences, we see it again and again and again, and then finally we're like, okay, I have to have the thing, right? Business works very similarly. People have to see you and hear from you enough to feel like they know you, to feel like they can trust you, and to feel like you have the solution to the problem that they need solved. And so today we're talking about speaking as a visibility strategy, but there are so many other ones. So if this is something that is on your mind right now, I strongly encourage you to go back through some of the prior episodes of the Powerful Women Rising podcast because we have covered so many visibility strategies, from writing a book to being a guest on other people's podcasts to using Instagram or LinkedIn. There are so many options for visibility, and you just have to find what works for you and then focus in on that one. So today we're talking about speaking, and I want you to listen to this episode even if you are somebody that's like, oh my gosh, I could never. If you even have that little spark of like, ooh, maybe, before that voice comes in that says, no, you can't, nobody wants to hear from you, you don't have anything to say, that would never work for you, right? If you have that little spark before the nasty voice comes in, then you have to listen to this episode. So in this episode, I am joined by Leisa Reid, and she is the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now and the CEO of the International Speaker Network. She helps entrepreneurs grow their business through public speaking. She guides them in creating their signature talk and equips them with tools to stay booked, empowering them to share their brilliance and thrive on stage for life. You're going to hear a little bit about her story and how public speaking became a part of her journey, and she's going to share some really good tips for you to get started or to get more consistent when it comes to public speaking. If you're looking for other opportunities to be more visible, I highly recommend checking out the Powerful Women Rising Connection Network. We do 2 virtual speed networking events every month with some of the best women in business. And people come from all over the world. They are women who have been in business for a little while, people who have been in business for 30 years, people in all different industries. But what they have in common is that they want to support each other. They are very generous with their resources, their ideas, their encouragement, and it's just such an awesome environment that is going to help you expand your circle and expand your reach every single time you show up. So I will put the link for that in the show notes, but for now, let's dive into today's interview. Hi, Leisa. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited to talk to you today about public speaking and speaking as a marketing strategy. I think this is such an interesting one. And I would encourage people if they're listening and they're like, oh, nope, never getting on stage, skip, just listen and hear what Leisa has to say, because we're going to talk to those people too, right? Not just the people like me
Absolutely.
that are like, yes, please put the spotlight on me.
And here's the microphone. Can you turn it up?
Yeah, relatable. So before we dive in, tell everybody a little bit about you and about how you got to this point and what you do.
I started speaking as a person using speaking as a way to get clients back when I was 40. So this was 2013. Fast math. I'm 53 now at the recording moment. And I booked 83 speaking engagements my very first year. It's my ignorance on fire era is what I call it, because I just was going for it. And I brought in hundreds of clients to the organization that I was working with. And I started my own network for speakers, specifically entrepreneurs using speaking as a way to grow their business. And during that first couple years, people would ask me for help all the time. And I realized, gosh, there's a gap in this whole thing. Like, people want to speak, but then how do you speak if you don't know how to get on the stage? Or maybe you got lucky once, but then how do you keep getting lucky? How does that keep working? And so I finally realized, I could write down and start to catalog what I was doing. And not that everyone has to do it the way I do. I absolutely don't believe that. But there was definitely some secret sauce in there that was making it really easy for me. And I thought, oh, this is all teachable stuff. If you're willing, if you're willing to learn and do something a little bit different, it's easy and it gets results. So that's why I started Get Speaking Gigs now back in 2017.
That's awesome. Wow, you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, I've given over 600 talks, and I love working with entrepreneurs who already have that fire in the belly. They're like, I want to do this. But to your point, when you were opening the show, I do have clients who've never done it before, but maybe they secretly dreamed of doing it. But there were some fears. There were some like, oh, I don't know. Would anyone hear what I have to say? Would I be okay? Would I make a mistake? Would I look stupid? There's all these normal fears that are going to come up. And all that is overcomable.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people who are listening to this, let's talk first about people who are listening to this that have thought about speaking, or maybe they've done it once or twice, but it's not like one of their main visibility strategies.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how speaking works as a marketing strategy? Because I think sometimes people feel like, yeah, it's really good for positioning, right? It's good for people to see you as an expert. It's good for your ego, but how is it actually getting me clients?
Oh, yeah. Don't do it just for your ego. It would be tip number one. But it's a way to really make a connection with the audience. And especially if you have a service or a perspective or a product or a framework, something that needs a little bit of explanation or connection, maybe you work really intimately with people, it allows them to get to know you and develop some trust without entering into a sales conversation right out the bat. And I think especially that is difficult for people in positions like, let's say, a life coach, where you're so excited, you can't wait to help people, you want to dig in and really get into the nitty-gritty of their emotions and how you can help them. And then you kind of run out of your friends and family and you're thinking, okay, so am I just DMing people on the gram or Facebook or something? Like, how do I actually get clients? How do I get someone to trust that I can help shepherd them through this thing? And when you can speak, you can give tidbits, you can get lessons that are really valuable and give them a taste of who you are, what your style is. And then the audience comes to you. And I don't mean that the entire audience is going to flood you, and that might happen, but if you have a high ticket item, maybe you only need a couple people in the audience to really go, you know what, you were speaking just directly to me. And it just makes the sales process easier. And you don't have to hunt for clients. I have a talk where I say, you didn't start a business because you want to chase clients. I don't think anyone really gets in business for that. So this helps solve that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot in the Powerful Women Rising Business Growth Mastermind about different marketing strategies. And, people will always come to the mastermind and say things like, okay, so I need your best LinkedIn tips because I'm not on LinkedIn and I know I should be. So give me your best LinkedIn tips. And instead of giving them LinkedIn tips, the group will be like, well, let's first talk about why you think you need to be on LinkedIn, right? And by the end of the conversation, they're like, never mind, I don't need to be on LinkedIn. But one of the things we talk about a lot is like, we have so many members, and I think this is true for so many people, that's like, you can get certain things across in a Facebook post. You can get things across in a email, right? Those are all good strategies, but there's something very different, whether it's video or it's live, for people about hearing your voice and seeing your mannerisms and feeling the actual emotion in your story. So I love what you said about like, it really does warm your audience up quicker than I think anything else.
It's a quick way to do that. And it's not just the speaking part, but it's the, leveraging that with your social media posting, whatever your platform is. It's leveraging that with your email campaign or your freebie or your whatever. And as you know, as an entrepreneur and you're leading, successful entrepreneurs through business ownership, it's not just one thing. I think sometimes people think, oh, if I get that one talk in front of this, billions of people, that's going to be the answer to my problems. I'm like, probably not. It's probably not going to be the answer to your problems. But what could be the answer to your problems is a consistent strategy that works for you and that you can duplicate, replicate, that makes your life easier, that gives you more freedom, and having those different pieces set up. Oh, we have a little visitor. I love it. So I think that's where sometimes we can get into that. I should do this. I need to do that. I have to do this. And I saw someone else do that and they got success. I actually had a client say that to me the other day. She's like, well, I want to do a TED Talk. I'm like, okay, TEDx. I said, tell me why. That's not a bad goal. And then she's like, well, a friend of mine had one and she's had a lot of success. I'm like, well, what else has she done? It's probably not just that. And then is there a marketing plan behind that strategy? And so it's same. I'm like right with you. We have to think, really scale it back. Why are we doing what we're doing? Usually the people I work with, they want more clients because they want to make an impact. They want to give that thing that provide that service, offer that special gift that they have to someone to help them change their lives.
Yeah.
But they just need people. So speaking ends up being like this nice bridge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about some of these things in the beginning, but what are some of the things that you typically see that keep people from speaking on stage?
Usually they don't have a plan. And so they might get asked to speak. And if they're not ready, I'm a huge fan of get ready to be ready. If they're not ready, they will probably avoid that request or never get back to the person or say, oh, I'll get back to you and then never really get back to them. They also might take that opportunity, but then wing it, which I do not recommend. That's almost worse than doing it, or worse than not doing it at all. So I think it's very important to have a plan in place. It's kind of like do your homework ahead of time. Prepare as if you're going to be doing it. Like you don't show up to the Olympics and go, oh, I'm a pretty good gymnast. I'll just do some flips across the mat. Like they have practiced, they have put the hours in, put the reps in. And trust me, you don't have to work as hard as an Olympian to be a speaker, just in case you're worried.
Yeah. I think too, people think like, I'm not qualified or like, there's so many people who have so many interesting things to say. I don't really have anything interesting to say. I don't have anything important. I don't have anything anybody wants to listen to. What do you 100% say to those people?
Okay. I have how long is this podcast? Because I could talk about that for a long time. It's something I call speaker's kryptonite, and it shows up differently in different people. So some of the phrases that you just said is exactly what people will think, well, I need to write more content. I have to put more videos out there. I got to get another certification. I need to write a book. I need to do this and that and all the things. And that's literally their subconscious mind is just keeping them safe and nice and in the comfy zone. Or it could be like, oh, I don't know if I'm really good enough to do that. I've never given a talk before. I mean, what would I say? Who do I think I am? All those little thoughts creep in. And when we have a business, those thoughts come up, whether you're trying to speak or do an email campaign or raise your prices, it's just going to come up. So the closer you can get to understanding those thoughts in your mind and then processing that. So you go, okay, thank you for keeping me safe. I hear you. And I'm going to move into a different direction anyway. Thank you for sharing. And then we go forward. But yeah, I often say actually I have my magic wand right here. One of the things that I do in my live talks in person is everybody gets a magic wand. And we go through this quiz of like, does it make sense for you to be a speaker? Even if you've never done it before, does it make sense? Let's talk about that. And we talk about it like from the head, the logic side, and then from the heart. Like, I'm not here to make you do stuff you hate. Why would you do more soul-sucking activities? If you would rather get a root canal than do public speaking, then please do not do it, right? Yeah. But if you're like, wait a second, I could teach something. Well, that doesn't sound as scary. You mean I could like attract the people that I would really, really want to work with? Okay, I'm listening. Like we have to like step into a new version of ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, in my experience speaking, it was easier to kind of ease into it, right? Like I didn't go from never being on stage to speaking in front of 400 people. I went from never speaking on stage to like doing some video presentations. That feels a lot safer, right? Like if I'm just completely mortified and an idiot, I'll just be like, oh, my connection, got to go by. And then, speaking to smaller audiences of maybe like 30 and, kind of working your way up. And I feel like, I don't know what your take on that is, but for me, that felt easier.
Yeah, I always say like we can do low-hanging fruit. Why not do low-hanging fruit? Go and speak in front of, I do recommend your first speaking engagement, especially if you have a lot of, trepidation around it. Your first one, don't make that be the most important one in your whole life, right? Don't have it full of the exact perfect clients and it's the best opportunity you've ever seen in your whole gosh darn life. Go do it in front of, kids in the neighborhood, your friends, your close buddies, your work colleagues, your family, depending on, your relationship, somewhere close to home, somewhere where you're like, oh, I kind of feel comfortable. Oh, I know where that is. Yeah, I could go over there. No big deal. And then you can just let a lot of the nerves out during that session. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect the first time. It's like, imagine we're 5 years old and we didn't tie our shoes perfectly the very first time. Like, would we just give up? And we're like, oh, that just doesn't work. I'm never going to tie my shoes again. But we do that with speaking because it can feel vulnerable and scary. But it's like, give yourself some grace. Go, inch up at your own pace.
Yeah.
And be ready so that you can take those opportunities that are going to be ideal.
Yeah. We do that with so many things in business, don't we? It's like, I launched the thing once and nobody wants it. And I'm like, okay, well, got to start over.
Yeah. I guess I'm giving up my dreams. So you're like, whoa, hold on a second.
Or maybe just like change one thing and try again.
Yeah, maybe just need a little tweak. Yeah.
So how do we know if speaking is the right strategy for our business? Like, obviously, you mentioned, if you're somebody that is like, I would rather do literally anything than speak, probably not the best strategy. Right. For you. But is there anybody else who like shouldn't use speaking as a strategy for their business, or anybody who it's particularly suited to?
I think there's a nice sweet spot, and this isn't an exact, but one of the things I'll do is a speaker monetization formula where we start to figure out like, what's your speaking sales potential? Like, forget about the fee, if you're getting paid or not, just let that go for a second. Because if you have a service or product that's $1,000 or more, just even that initial sale, they might then continue. So that might turn into more money, but I don't want to complicate it. So let's say you have a program for $1,000, maybe $5,000. We'll just do $5,000 as an example. And you speak a couple times a month. It could even be virtual. And you got a client, let's say you average one client every talk. Let's see. I'm going to do some really quick math here. So we've got $5,000 times one client times 24 times a year, that's $120,000. And so when people go, oh, well, okay, I think I can get over my issues. I think I can work at like moving through that. Now, is that a guarantee? No, but it starts to empower you to go, does this make sense for me? So if you're selling your book for $20 and that's your big master business plan, that's probably not going to be the plan for you. But maybe you sell bulk book sales and you, depending on the environment, or you have a coaching program or some kind of consulting service that people pay top dollar for. Maybe they get a free book. Who cares, right? Who cares about the $20? But like, how do we make this make sense for you and your business? I think that's where it's helpful to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned at the beginning too, and this is something that I have struggled with, especially in the beginning, is like, okay, I want to speak. I know what I'm going to speak on. I know that there are people out there who like would love to hear this talk. And now what do I do? Like, how do I find them? Like I see so much generic advice that's like, call the Chamber of Commerce, ask your local women's group, which is great to start with. But like, what else?
Yes, there's so many different ways that you can navigate that. And I was literally just on a call the other day, and this gentleman said, well, the way to get speaking engagements is just you have to just cold call, reach out to hundreds every day. And I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like a soul sucking
Sounds
exercise.
terrible.
1,000,000%. And my clients do not want to do that. And that's kind of the popular way, like get a VA and have them submit your application. That's for certain types of speaking engagements. But it really depends on your audience, your message, and who your ideal clients are. And what kind of speaking life do you want to have? Are you a person who would love to travel, or are you like, oh, I kind of like staying home and cozy? Can we do a blend of virtual speaking and in person? Maybe you start to, I'm a huge fan of, I have so much to say about this. So I'm like, I've got like all the thoughts are coming in all at the same time. So I'm going to like take a number. Okay. So thought number one is it's important to get a lay of the land. Like, where are you? One of my clients is in Chicago. So it's like, okay, for her market, I'm like, I want you to get a lay of the land. What's going on in Chicago in this particular market that you are trying to jump into? What associations are there? What local groups are there? What national groups have chapters there? So we're talking associations, it could be chambers, could be networking groups, could be business groups, could be specialty groups. So you want to kind of get a lay of land in your own backyard. I call it like finding treasure in your own backyard, because that's just like easier. Like, I got to get on a plane if you live in a well-populated area. So I should say it's like basic, like you got to know what game you're playing, what's around. So you can keep your eyes and ears open when you're networking and say like, hey, do you know a person who's, a member of XYZ association? I'm a huge fan of warm introductions. So part of it is figuring out what warm introductions are you going to ask for? Because if you say, Melissa, like, oh, I'm looking to speak. Do you know anyone who has speakers? I'm like, yeah, the Knitting Association of America. Like, that's not really who you're looking for, right? So we want to be able to train the people around us to know what to look for. Sometimes that can be confusing too. Like we just had our International Speaker Network meeting, and we always say, okay, what do you speak on and what's your ideal audience? And so sometimes I do a little coaching on the ideal audience. Someone's like, well, I'm looking for an audience of men and women who need to level up. I'm like, nobody knows, like, it's not like we need to level up, so we're going to all meet together. There's not an audience like that.
Yeah.
Now, but it's general enough to like, okay, you help men and women. So probably any group that's business oriented, they're going to be open to leveling up because they're there to grow. So that'll help to determine where to start looking.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I love that. So you mentioned when you and I were talking earlier that you have a list of the top 5 tips to get more speaking gigs.
Yes.
Can you share that with our audience?
I'm going to actually, you can go to getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips and get that. And those are some of the tips I've used to book over 600 talks. I've never used an agent. I've never used an agency. I just do it all myself. Still to this day, I have assistants, but they don't help me with that part. And I'm happy to give those out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if people are listening to this and they're like, oh, maybe speaking is a good idea for me, and they want to learn more about you and about what you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can go to the tips and get the getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips, pop your email in there, and then you'll get my email address and we'll be off to the races. There'll be a link in there eventually that you can, if you want to book a call with me, we can do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I feel like we could go, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to speaking. I feel like we could keep going forever, but we'll have to have you back for part 2 sometime. But I feel like this is a really good start to get people thinking like, maybe this is an idea for me. And maybe all these things I was thinking about of like why I can't speak are not actually true, and kind of give people a good starting place. So I think this is really helpful.
Thank you, Melissa.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Powerful Women Rising. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're looking for a fun, consistent, low-pressure way to meet other women in business and create more visibility, leads, and momentum, check out the Powerful Women Rising Connection Network. Looking for deeper support, a place to think things through, get honest feedback, and stay focused as you grow? You can learn more about our masterminds through the links in the show notes. If you loved the episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And until next time, keep rising, because building a business your way really is the best way.